Welcome back to our educational video series designed to help protect families properly. If you own a home, investment properties, or a car for that matter, get ready to hear things you probably haven't heard before, sometimes scary things about insurance that can cause serious harm. Today we're joined with Larry Hoover from Lewis Myers Insurance Brokers. If you listen to our first video in our series, you will have heard that Larry offers a unique service called a policy audit. If you didn't hear this video or are unfamiliar with this unique service, just like I was, check out the policy audit above. Ensure you are properly protected. You don't want to hear claim denied. Today, we're going to hear about common property insurance issues. So Larry, what can you share with us today?
Thanks very much, Maureen. And again, thanks for doing this and educating other folks as to how to protect themselves properly. So thanks for having me here. This is one of the most popular videos that we share with folks. It's basically about what are the typical kinds of issues that I see when I audit people's policies. And I'm a bit of an odd cat because I don't just say, hey, let me give you a quote and save you some money. I audit your current policies and I find strengths and weaknesses, red lines, and red lines are not good. And then you either go get them fixed with your current insurance person, or perhaps we can work together, whatever you're comfortable with. So let's start with some of the most common things that I see in terms of issues, things that have to be fixed with people's home insurance. And number one, we're going to start off with the number one claim in Canada, and that would be water. And water can get into your house in different ways. The number one claim in the country is something called sewer backup. Now that is, I saw a statistic not too long ago that said that the average repair job is about $46,000 for a sewer backup claim, which means somebody probably had a finished basement. Very, very common today, as you know. So I tell people you're going to want 6 figures reimbursement. So that's 100,000 or more. The story I share with people, in the last year or two, a couple of folks told me they had sewer backup claims, $75,000, $110,000, and they only had, let's say, $25,000 coverage from their insurance company. That's a big amount of money that's out of your pocket where you'd have to pay the difference there. I'll also make it clear that for folks who are on a septic system, don't be fooled, because that $75,000 claim was somebody who had a sewer backup from their septic system in their yard. So you still need good coverage for that. Number two, water claim in the country is something called groundwater. So that would be water that comes into your basement below the dirt level. And this is particularly true for older neighborhoods, because the stuff that we can't see under the ground, it's aging, it's getting old, the pipes are getting old, things shift. Tree roots are getting bigger just through nature, and things are breaking more frequently. So water can come through the concrete foundation of your house, the walls and the floors, and that's how groundwater comes in. So there's more and more companies not even offering any groundwater coverage, and it's a common claim. Oh, wow. Okay, and something else as well too, updated mechanicals. So over the years, people will replace their furnace or their hot water tank, or perhaps the shingles on the roof. And a lot of companies will give you a little discount if you do that. Problem is, because you may not be getting update phone calls from your insurance person every 1 or 2 years, they may not know about it. You've missed a small discount there on your on updated mechanicals. So that's something that I commonly see. The next one is rather scary, actually. This is regarding smoking. Now, excuse me. I always ask people 2 questions when I'm providing a policy quote for folks. Number 1, do you or anyone else in your family smoke or vape in the house? And number 2, do either of you smoke or vape in the garage or outside, depending on the weather or the time of year? And there's a very bad story that really hurt a family, whereby the husband was smoking outside. It caused a fire. It caused a dried flower planter to torch it and the house and the 2 houses on either side. It was $1 million fire, and the insurance company denied the claim for that because they said, you never told us that you smoke. And they didn't care that you smoke outside. You're still considered a smoker. That was $1 million
Wow.
fire. That's a nasty one. So I always ask both questions. Now, maybe not everyone's going to tell me the truth, but I can only do so much. So I ask both
Right.
questions.
Right. Right.
The next thing is third-party monitored fire alarm or burglar alarm. Now, home monitoring systems are becoming more and more common. The example I saw a few months ago was somebody's policy said they've got a discount because they have a third-party monitoring fire and burglary. Now, they were on Rogers home monitoring, which means that the owners of the house are alerted on their smartphones, not an objective third party monitoring 24/7, such as an ADT security. So they were getting a discount they should not have gotten, and that is a potential claim denied if something happens to them, and they didn't even know it. The next thing I want to talk about is a pool. Pools are lovely. A lot of people are saying, I can't afford a cottage, so I'm going to turn my backyard into my cottage and get a pool. That increases the risk on that property, a liability. What if you're sued? And we'll talk about these types of liability and suing issues on another video as well too. But a new pool is another item that people may not put on their policy, and that could hurt them as well too.
Right. So what would happen if I renovated my home?
Insurance companies want to know about renovations, and there's a lot of it going on today. In this economy, people can't afford to move up, so they're putting money into their current home. So generally speaking, the most common number is $10,000 or more. You have to tell your insurance person because the more it's going to cost them to rebuild your house, the more your premium will go up a little bit,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
The common ones in the older homes are removing walls and adding beams and so on and opening up the ground floors. We probably all know someone who's done that. Also adding sunrooms or finishing an attic or adding an extra room pounded out from the house as well too. And finished basement is a very, very common one. So if you don't tell your insurance person about the finished basement, guess where the water goes, and you may not be reimbursed. Another one is water and sewer lines. So this story happened a couple of months ago, actually. I heard of a couple, they had a sewer backup in their basement. So they walked down to the basement and she stepped into something stinky. And she discovered from her policy that they had no coverage for a water sewer line coverage. And which means that there's a delineation point in the front yard. So that side of it is the city's, this side of it, you got to repair. They had no coverage and they're out of pocket $12,000 and counting when I last heard. So some special items as well too I want to mention. Companies will cap how much money they're going to reimburse you for certain items and categories of things. Jewelry, watches, bicycles, and things of that nature. My summary of findings from my audits from last year, 2021, I found that at least 20% of all homeowners were underinsured for these types of things, jewelry, watches, gems, bicycles, because they weren't asked these questions. Do you have any jewelry? What would it cost to replace them all tomorrow? What's the cost of the single most expensive thing? So in my analysis from last year's audits, I found people could be out a couple of $1,000 up to $94,000 because of these things they were not asked. Okay. Also, I want to mention collections. Now, that would be things like artwork, card collections, comic books, musical instruments. There may be caps on those things as well, too.
Do you see something original very often?
Every year brings one or two things I've never seen before. So last year, a couple of things. Number one, a couple of companies were saying if your hot water tank, your hot water heater in the basement is older than 10 years, and it causes a flood, we are not going to pay for the damage. That's the first one that I've seen. The second one is, and this one really caught me, is that shingles and fences. I saw the first company back in the summer that said if, generally speaking, if your shingles on the roof or your fence, for example, is older than 5 years, we are going to start to depreciate how much money we're going to give back to you if they're blown over or blown off. So that means that the insurance companies are starting to lose more money because of wind and windstorms, shingles, and fences. So those are the newest from last year. Yeah.
So what's the next steps if somebody wants a policy review?
Excellent. So it's very simple, Maureen. Thanks for asking. What I need is simply send me the last renewal that you were sent. So it could be 3 weeks old. It could be 11 months old. All I really need on your properties is showing the page or two, what your coverages are and what you're paying for them. On the car insurance side, because stay tuned, we're going to do one of these things for car owners. Again, the coverages that you've got on those cars and the page that shows the details of the driver. So just email me those. Part two will be, we'll have a phone call and I'm going to ask you boring questions about those things. And then based on what you tell me and what I see, we're going to have the next step where I'm going to be reporting on your policy review results, and it will show my best quote side by side with your current policy. And you're going to find it very, very interesting.
So the next step, if somebody isn't sure yet, but they want to learn a little bit more.
We could have a quick 15-minute phone chat. I can explain some of this a little bit further. I believe my contact information will be available to the readers and the viewers here today, and my link to my calendar, as well as my cell number and my email.
Okay, lovely. So that's wonderful. So thanks again, Larry. That's really appreciate your time and sharing a few more details for people to understand how to protect their family. And if you don't want to miss any more important information from Larry, be sure to subscribe to my channel below. And thanks for taking the time for watching. And thanks again, Larry, and take care, everybody.
Thanks very much, Maureen. Everyone be safe.